Welcome, everybody. Right now, you are getting on the live webinar. We're so honored to have you. My name is Dr. Accurso, and I am with Karen, my main woman on the back end. There she is. We're going to have Karen on, by the way. So just to let you know, we are going to have the wonderful Karen on a live webinar. We are talking about the details of that. So be expecting to meet Karen. She's awesome. It's 9:01, January 28th. And honestly, I'm just so happy to spend this time with each and every one of you. If you're just getting on right now, this is a live webinar. We are not recording or re-recording or giving you something that's already been recorded. We're doing this live. Wherever you're from out there, I would love to know who you are and where you're from. So you can put it in the chat box to the right. We're going to be talking about premature aging tonight. Who doesn't want to know about premature aging? Raise your hand. I mean, everybody is like going nuts about, anti-aging this and premature aging that, and I want to avoid getting old and turning back the clock, and everybody wants that. What's up, Brent from Evansville, Indiana? Good to have you on, my man. Everybody wants it, right? It's trending words, and they can sometimes be misleading because we think of like a pill, potion, or a lotion. Hey, Barbara from Maine, good to have you on. And when in fact, there are things that we can do to not only stop it, but there is actually research out there now that's actually looking into reversing it. So pretty amazing stuff. I was on a genetics call the other night. Jocelyn from Woodstock, Georgia. Woo-woo, Georgia. Hopefully you're not a bulldog. If you are, I forgive you. Hey, Marouge. Oh, good to have you on. So good to have you on. Absolutely. From New Jersey. Marouge is from New Jersey. Amazing state there. I don't know how you guys do the cold. I really don't. Some of you guys, you are braving the cold. I am braving, 75-degree weather. Don't be mad. It's okay. We have to deal with our own stuff. We have to deal with falling coconuts that could hit us in the head, knock us out. We have to deal with things like that all the time. So, you deal with snow, we deal with falling coconuts. It's fine, Hey, Carol from Florida. All right. Woo! That is awesome. That is awesome. And Ting from Florida. All right. 2 Floridians backing me up tonight. Loving it. I'm looking at, playlists right now for playing music in the background because I feel like, it just kind of makes it a little bit more fun in the intro of the call. And Karen and I were talking about different music that we would like to have in the back end. So if you have any music that you think would be awesome, get it to Karen. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. What's up, Patricia from Bristol, Connecticut? Another ridiculously cold environment up there. It's 9:04. We are live on this webinar tonight. Going to be talking about premature aging and talking about, you probably saw this, the one solution, right? When you see the one solution, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. Like, what is the one solution to reverse the clock or stop the clock from aging? And we're going to talk about that tonight. It's going to be amazing. I have a lot of information to get through. Wendy from Calgary, Canada. Dr. Jones would be jumping up and down right now. He is in LA at the moment at a seminar. Somebody's got to fly to LA and go to these seminars. It's got to be him, I guess, right? But we're super excited for him, praying safe travels there. But he would fall in love with Wendy from being from Canada. So we got a lot of people on. Brent said Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, man, you can't argue with Bob Dylan. There's no argument there. There's really nothing I can say except yes. Very talented musician. Thank you for the suggestion, by the way. But we're going to get started here. It is 9:05, January 28th, live webinar. Hey, I want to thank you. Appreciate your feedback to us. If you've been on our Facebook page, if you've logged into Superhuman Entrepreneur, if you've gone to Designer Health Centers, we had 400 and some odd people sign up for the webinar. I mean, amazing. So thank you so much for your support. It's literally because you guys are talking about what we're doing. That's the only reason why our numbers are up like that. You know, there's nothing special about me. I mean, I'm just I don't make the mail, I just deliver it, as they say. You know, so I'm just looking at other people's research and spouting it off to you guys. But I will say, you know, I love what I do. I love caring for people. I love seeing people thrive into their best years yet. And I know that we are cultivating a movement in our world right now that is prevention centered, not emergency centered. You know, we know that if you wait for things to show up, then it's already an emergency, and it's already something that can easily turn into something that could potentially not only take a life, but end up with, you know, extreme amounts of money being spent on disease processes, or, you know, medications, you know, or, you know, an emergency situation like a surgery or something like that. So we want to prevent all those things from happening, and we want people to live their best life yet. And that's why we're talking about what we're talking about tonight. So I am going to share my slides. Thank you so much for being on. Once again, Woodland, California. Lewis, so great to have you. I wonder if that's our friend Lewis. Maybe I have a friend in California named Lewis. So if that's you, my man, good to have you on. I'm going to share my slides here. So if we have any technical difficulties, Karen's going to yell at me, and then we'll fix whatever's going on. But this should work. Right now, you should see like a bunch of screens just going crazy. And then you should see my screen, which man, I just gave away my last slide. That's horrible. So, so the health skeleton key, the one thing you need to know to eradicate premature aging. And this is important to know, that healing starts in the mind first. You know, before you address a symptom, before you address a goal to get healthy, to get vibrant, to get energetic, to win back those things that you're wanting to implement into your life, you have to know that healing starts in the mind first. And the reason that I say that is because when you look at health today, we have a lot of pills, potions, lotions, organic food, exercise programs, diets, the new latest and greatest stuff being thrown at us. Yet when you look at the scheme of things and how the human race has evolved, you know, look at our hunter-gatherer societies, right? They didn't have any of those things. I mean, they lived off the land. Now, obviously, we don't live in the same time as our hunter-gatherer societies. There are many things that are different. We're exposed to more toxins than ever before. Over 100,000 new toxins coming onto the market since World War II. And so we have to obviously be proactive and know that, you know, the meat that we get and the foods that we're eating are tainted, and that's why we have to pay attention to these things. But before we get into all that, I want to talk to you about who I am. You know, my story is pretty simple. When I was, and a lot of you may not know it, but when I was about 2 years old, I had, or a hearing problem was discovered. And they found that I had a 75% hearing loss. And my mom was devastated, you know, and honestly, she suspected something, and because it was 75%, there were times when I could hear, and then they thought it was selective hearing, and then they said, well, you know, no, he's ADHD. I have no idea how you could prescribe an ADHD diagnosis on a 2-year-old, but they did. And in the end, I basically, you know, went to a doctor, got my ears checked, and they found that, you know, I had a 75% hearing loss. And the reason is because the tubes in my ears were constantly being clogged. Well, this, you know, continued until really something was done about it. Something was really discovered right around fourth grade, because they were like, well, make sure that you're cleaning the ears out and things like that. And so what had happened was I essentially went to my uncle, who was a holistic practitioner down south, and he started doing treatments on me. And one of the treatments that he did was he was making sure that my atlas in the top of my neck was aligned. And the reason that that's so powerful is because there's a nerve that comes from the brain down the spinal cord called the vagus nerve, and vagus means wandering. And so that literally conducts almost everything in your entire body. Well, once you start freeing that nerve up and also freeing the brainstem up, you start to affect eye, ear, nose, and throat. And so it was amazing, but I started to regain hearing, and I started to be able to actually perform in school. I remember there was a time where they actually taped a clock on my desk because I was so far behind in school, I didn't actually learn how to read time until later. And I remember the teacher saying, your son has a learning deficiency. And in the end, they were like, no, it's his hearing. He has a severe hearing problem. So I ended up being behind in school. Well, I got helped by my uncle, and my mom was, blown away, and she believed in what he was doing. And so I remember being 8 years old and sitting next to her desk, and her asking me, she would always ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be whatever, a fireman, a policeman, whatever. And she would say, well, you can be anything you want to be as long as it's a doctor just like your uncle. And that's not child abuse. That's just, she saw the potential. She saw the passion that my uncle had for healing people. And she saw the passion that he had for making sure that the human race understood what healing was specifically and how it started in the body first. So skip forward, now here I am. I'm a doctor in designer health centers and running the company with my partner. And we run a legacy program called EPIC. It's a doctor program that teaches physicians all around the world how to utilize our programs to get results in people's lives, just like I got when I was 8 years old. We also run Superhuman Entrepreneur, which is a podcast. I can say selfishly that we run that podcast just so we can learn from the top experts in the world. So we run Superhuman Entrepreneur, and we're able to get mass amounts of cutting edge information out to people so that we can continue to add value to people and empower them. We also run Thrive, which is a continuity program that people come on with us when they want us to be their coaches indefinitely. So they just want us to be there for them. They want to have consistent calls with us to learn more about what we're learning and what we're involved in. For instance, this genetic training that we're learning, we're incorporating into our programs now. So people want to be engaged, they want to be challenged, and so that's what Thrive is for. This was the scariest talk I ever did in my life, and I wanted to put this here because I wanted to let everybody know that nothing is impossible. This was a talk that I did to the Ven Prita, which is all the way on the left. It's the monk sitting all the way on the left-hand side. And he invited me to come because he heard a talk that I did, and he said, my temple has to hear this information. The woman crouching, her name is Kit. Not a single one of these people spoke English, okay? So I go in and I am crouching because Kit is crouching. And everyone just explodes in laughter. And I'm looking around like, what is everybody laughing at? And Kit says, you don't have to crouch. You're a man, you don't have to crouch. So women have to crouch when they approach the Ven Prita, men don't. And so I got a huge laugh. Great start to a talk, right? But I think the most important lesson I got out of this, though, is that even though there were a couple people that spoke English, but even though none of them did, I used visuals, and it ended up that half of this temple ended up coming into our clinic. And honestly, a lot of them didn't understand a word that I said, but it's essentially Kit said they felt the compassion and they felt the passion within me. So that's really cool to think about, because just so you know, you don't always have to have the words to say. You can just have the passion to get out there and make yourself available to people, and things will come to you. So you may find me with this good-looking guy. That's Dr. Jones. And we are able to reach people internationally with what we do now. And we just did a 7-hour shoot in Atlanta. Talk about one of the most crazy marathons I've ever done. Like, honestly, I think I've done races that were easier than 7-hour shoot in a studio. I mean, there's probably one more thing that's more painful, and that's like labor. I really believe that. I mean, I understood why actors cuss so much on set. It was just a crazy marathon. But anyway, this is one of my very good friends and my partner. And honestly, our goal and our mission, my mission here tonight, is to empower you with information so that you can live your best life yet. So this is just real quick. I want to just throw this out for a fun little factoid. This is the Breakfast Blaster. This is an awesome way to start your morning. And I can tell you that it's low on the glycemic index, so it's not going to raise your blood sugar. And you can see all the ingredients right there. You can write them down, take a snapshot with your picture. But essentially, this is giving your body the boost that it needs in the morning. I'm not a fan of drinking coffee all the time. But when you do drink coffee, this is a great way to do it. Mixing it with maca powder, a superfood. Mixing it with a raw organic protein and grass-fed butter is amazing for your cells, amazing for your brain. And that coffee is an antioxidant. And so yes, it can be a stimulator, but you can use Swiss cold filtered Swiss processed coffee, and that will help in that situation if you don't want the caffeine in there. So that's my Breakfast Blaster, throwing a little bit of energy your way in the morning. So what is health? When you ask yourself, what is health? If I were to ask you, what is health? What would you say? Would you say, it's how you feel? A lot of people say that it's how you feel. Well, the fact is, if I were to tell you that, most stage 1 cancer, stage 1 heart disease patients, diabetes, any disease process, if they're in the beginning stages, the person feels nothing. The person feels fine or can feel fine, and most of the time they do. So how do you know that you're healthy? It's how every cell, tissue, and organ is functioning at 100% all the time. And the reason we're talking about this first, when we're talking about aging, is because it is so important that we get the fact that we must see health a certain way. We have to change our paradigm of how we see health. Health is not how you feel, it's how you are functioning. And in our culture, our medical system is based on how people feel, not necessarily how they're functioning. 1 in 1,000 people make it to good health by the age of 60. I had a gentleman say to me, well, how can that be true? And I said, well, how many people do you know over 60 on no medications? 58, 56, 54. It's getting worse. Every 30 seconds, there's a new cancer diagnosis. 1 in 2 women over 30 are on a medication or 2. So I always ask, what would happen if you swallowed a whole bottle of pills, not fish oils? This picture is, I laugh when I saw this slide because it looks like fish oils, but let's just say these are medications. What would happen if you swallowed the whole bottle? You would potentially die, or you'd have to get your stomach pumped, and hopefully you didn't die. But if swallowing a whole bottle kills you, then what happens when you take one, right? It kills you slowly. And it's exactly the problem with medications and a lot of intervention in our medical system is they're not geared toward wellness. If you were to walk into a mechanic shop tomorrow and you were to ask for a haircut, right? They would say, "What are you talking? Are you crazy? This is a mechanic shop. We don't cut hair here." So it's no different when you walk into a hospital, okay, and you want to get well. They don't make people well. They handle emergencies. So we have to know that. There's a difference. If you walked into my clinic, for instance, if you got your hand taken off in a car wreck and you walked into my clinic with a rag around your wrist, bleeding, I would say you need to go to the hospital right away because that's an emergency. You need to go there. Those guys do emergencies, but they don't do wellness. And that's what we need to understand is that the reason that we have so many people going down the road of this fast-paced aging, this premature aging, is because we have a medical system that essentially has a grip on most people in our country. Because what happens when you don't feel well? You end up either taking something or going to the doctor, and there's only two tools in the tool belt. There's medications and there's surgeries. And if that medication doesn't work, what happens? They put you on another medication. If that medication doesn't work, what do? They put you on another medication or a black label drug, which only has 2 or 3 months of experimentation. And more drugs are coming out like that, where there's no long-term studies. So the fact is we are in a position right now that is not conducive to wellness. So maybe some of you may not know, the US is 36th in health. We're the most technologically advanced country in the world, yet we're 36th in health. Time magazine asked doctors, what scares you the most? What scares you the most? You know what they said? You'll never believe this. Being the patient. Being the patient scares your doctor the most. Why would they say that? That's my question. Why would they say that? It's because they know that there's one entity that dictates everything that they can do to you. It'd be one thing if they could actually apply what exactly you needed and used it on you. But the fact is that they can't simply do whatever you need. They're dictated by one thing, and that's insurance. Insurance dictates everything your doctor does. The dollar bill, what you pay, dictates everything that your doctor does, and they know that. And so the number one cause of death in the US, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, automobile accidents, none of those are the number one cause of death. Heart disease is the number one disease factor. The number one cause of death is iatrogenesis, which is physician-induced death, which you take a pill, you get a surgery, and there's one thing that happens, death. So it is not a good model. If I told you that a Boeing 747 crashed every week and killed 300 people, how many of us believe that, if it was a Delta plane, that Delta would still be around today? No, they'd close them down immediately. Yet the medical system is taking more lives than ever before, and they are more abundant and more robust than ever before. And here's the thing. I have medical doctors that are friends. I'm not, my goal is not to bash doctors. My goal is to say the paradigm is off. We need to start changing things and paying attention to what's not working. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You're not going to get a different result if you keep going down the same road and hitting the same tree. So one of the things that we have to know is empirical evidence versus traditional, okay? And this is why this is important. And I promise you, I'm going to get into the crux of premature aging, and I'm going to give you some applicable things that you can look at in your own life. But I want to get this out of the way because it's very important. Because if we don't start thinking right, there's so many webinars and so many seminars out there that want to just give you a quick fix. Like, let me give you, I honestly, right now, I could give you foods that would help with premature aging. It's very easy to do, but the fact is that if you don't understand the paradigm of why you're doing it, then what happens is you end up incorporating all these great things. I see many people in organic food stores exercising their butts off, doing the latest and greatest detox fads, and then guess what? They end up having an emergency. Some of the most healthy people in my clinic would come in with the most crazy disease processes. And you're thinking, well, how does that happen to a person like that? And it's because their paradigm is off. How they're actually viewing their health is wrong. And so empirical evidence versus traditional is this. This is very important. I want to take notes if you have pen and paper, because this is really the crux of what's happening in our medical system, why it's so bad right now. Is empirical evidence is evidence that is scientifically sustained, not by a medical journal, not by a publishing. It's scientifically sustained by factual evidence, meaning the brain controls the body through the spinal cord. That power goes from your brain through your hypothalamus, down the brainstem, through the vagus nerve, into the spinal cord, out the nerves, into your organs. That is empirical evidence, meaning nobody can argue that, nobody can refute that. Ask any scientist on the face of the earth what controls the body, they're going to say the brain. This is traditional based. Traditional based would be something like you may have heard the whole thing with earaches. Like the best thing for an earache would be to take an antibiotic, right? Well, actually, that doesn't do anything for an earache at all, because an earache is not bacterial, it's viral. So the fact is that knowing that there's so many medications being given to people across the US, especially children, there are so many children taking antibiotics for earaches, yet it doesn't do anything. It's no good. That's actually old medicine. It's traditional based medicine, which means that that's the way we've always done it. We're going to continue to do it that way. We're not thinking through it. So that's empirical evidence versus traditional. So in essence, the cons far outweigh the pros, meaning that all the research that's coming out on medication-based, surgery-based medicine is crumbling beneath us. It's great for emergency care, but when it comes to wellness, once again, we know that it just toxifies the body. And we know that because your genetics, that have come from your ancestors, you're not sick because you're deficient in aspirin or ibuprofen. You're not doing well, you're not getting healthy because you're deficient in these things. It's because there's something missing from the body. You're either toxic in something which your body cannot adapt, or you're deficient in something which your body needs. And we know that the cons far outweighs the pros because we have articles being written all the time on what medications are actually doing to people's bodies. I mean, get this. Take one 50 milligram pill of Vioxx for 5 days, and a study undertaken 2 years ago showed that this increases the chances of getting coronary artery disease by 70%. That's the Lancet Journal, October 5th, 2002. Infants exposed to one single round of antibiotics during their first years of life are twice as likely to develop asthma as those who don't. The more courses of antibiotics, the worse the immunity and the greater the risk of asthma. That was Newsday, March 6, 2006. Take one aspirin per day, right? An aspirin a day. You know how many elderly take an aspirin a day? Daily aspirin intake shows a significantly increased risk of pancreatic cancer among women. So this cancer is fatal 90% of the time. That's the American Association for Cancer Research, guys, October 27, 2003. Take one painkiller can cause death. There's over 16,500 deaths from NSAIDs, painkillers, each year in hospitals alone. That's JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, July 26, 2000. Why do I tell you all this? Because we are constantly inundated with it. It's constantly around us. So where will you spend your retirement? That's what you have to ask yourself. That's what we all have to ask ourselves. Where do we want to spend our retirement? You want to be on a beach or you want to be in a nursing home? And obviously that's a loaded question because we all want to be on the beach. But the fact is, we have more and more people going down this road of sickness, suffering, and disease than ever before. And you know what it's doing? You know why? Because it is aging the body tremendously. We are more toxic than ever before. And really it comes down to learning how the body works. How does your body work? How does the body heal? How does the body get disease? There was a doctor that I used to study back in school named B.J. Palmer who would talk about how he doesn't want to study if you have 4 men in a room and 3 of them get sick. He doesn't want to study the guys who got sick and all the different ins and outs of the sickness. He wants to study the guy who stayed well. Why did he get well? Why did he stay well? And that's exactly the question that I wanted to answer in school. I want to know why people stay well. I don't want to, sickness, pathology is mythology. We're just calling something that the body is doing a name. And there's only one reason why the body gets sick or why it breaks down. There's really one diagnosis. It's my body is falling apart. MBFA, my body is falling apart. So why is the body falling apart? Let's get to the bottom of it. And obviously this ties in to premature aging. 10% feeling, 90% function. This is an amazing statistic, guys. When you're first born, your brain and your spinal cord are the first things that develop. That's all. You're literally a bud and a tail. Wrapped around that tail are millions of nerve tracts. Get this, 10% of those nerve tracts are involved in feeling. 90% are function. Our medical system operates in the 10% feeling. How do I know that? Because what happens when you end up there? It's because you're not feeling good. If you're feeling fine, right? Everything's going good, then you're not going to pursue, doing medical intervention. But if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling fine, then that's when you're going to go. But the fact is, the body, 90% of it is function, meaning that most likely when a disease process is developing in your body, you're not going to feel it. You're not going to feel it. And that's why it's so important when you look at your body that you need to ask yourself, do I have the proper algorithms to know if my body is functioning properly? And that's exactly why we started Designer Health Centers, and that's exactly why we do what we do internationally, because this message needs to get out. It needs to be on the floor of Congress. We are planning on changing healthcare. It's already in the works. We're going to have clinics opening up all around the world in order to have people come in and figure out, okay, let's look at the 90% and not just the 10% feeling. So learn how disease develops. Like I said, pathology is mythology. And the reason I have a space in between that dis-ease is because there is no such thing as disease. No such thing as disease. It's dis-ease, meaning the body is not at ease. So let's figure out why it's not at ease and do something about it. Let's give it the proper ammunition that it needs to heal and then go from there. If you look at the common denominator of all diseases in the Merck manual, this is literally the Bible of diseases, you will find one common denominator. They're all silent. They all develop silently. So that is why you cannot trust the feeling of your body. You have to know that there's more to it. It goes deeper. And that's why labs are the cream of the crop. I wish we didn't have to have labs because I hate needles. And, to be honest, sometimes it's not enjoyable. But the fact is that the reason that I personally get my blood work done and I test my urine and I test my saliva is because there's too much to live for. We all have our lives ahead of us. So we got to know our numbers. We got to know our algorithm. We got to know our panels and figure out what the body needs. What's it worth to be healthy, happy, and youthful? Have you asked yourself that question? What's it worth? Is there a price tag you could put on that? If you ask Tiger Woods' dad, there's not. If you ask Tiger Woods, there's not. Tiger Woods invested over $10 million into, cancer prevention for his dad. And in the end, it still took his life, So the fact is there are things happening all the time within our world where people are spending astronomical amounts of money. Well, why wait to be there? One of the patients that I used to see, came into my clinic one time and she was devastated. She was crying and I thought that that something had happened, and I said, Rebecca, what's going on? And she couldn't stop crying. And finally, she looked up at me and she said, I wish we would have taken that road that we talked about 2 years ago. And the road that she was referring to was there was a couple tests that we were going to run on her younger son. And we ended up not doing them because, once again, he was fine. He wasn't feeling anything. And 2 years later, he comes down with this diagnosis. I won't go into detail about it, but it was devastating to their family. And let's just say it was life-threatening. And they would have never gone down that road if we would have just done these tests in order to see genetically what his predispositions were. And if we could have found those out, we could have avoided that road of him going down this devastating diagnosis. And so, I tell you that because there is no amount of money that you can put on your health. And each one of you out there, I value you greatly. And I want you to be able to have the knowledge to know, what's coming down the road. And so right now we're going to talk about genes. And I know all of you want to talk about that. We're not going to talk about genes. We're going to talk about this genes. And hopefully I got some of you laughing with that one. I mean, I'm trying to break up the monotony here, okay? We're going to talk about genes for a minute, okay? So genes are important. Why are they important? Epigenetics is the environment that controls what your genes do. Epigenetics is more powerful than your genes. And because your gene is, I don't want to say a slave, but it's kind of like that. It's slave to your epigenetics, your environment. So you have all these triggers in your genes. Everyone's born with the prosperity to produce insulin in different ways, fats different ways. This is why some diets do wonderful. Some people do wonderful on some diets, like all vegan, raw, low carb, high fat. This is the crux. If you want to stop premature aging in its tracks, this is the crux of it right here. Your genes. Honestly, we could talk about nutrition till we're blue in the face, and exercise, and all the latest and greatest tools that you could use technologically to stop premature aging. You could eat all raw food and get on this amazing sauna regimen and do infrared and do vitamin C injections, do vitamin K injections, and go to specialized doctors that are doing this stuff in Spain. But the fact is that it comes down to your genes. If you know what your genes are programmed to do, then you know how to combat what your predispositions are. This is the key, guys. Right now, the most cutting edge research is being done in premature aging, and it's all centered around your genes. So get this, MTFR mutation. And again, take notes because I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So this mutation is called the mother effer mutation. I did not make that up, but it's called the mother effer mutation, MTFR. This affects your ability to methylate. Why is methylate important? Methylation happens in your body 1 billion times over every second, especially when your folate is low. If you have this MTHFR gene, which can be easily found out through genetic testing, there can be a great reason why you feel like utter crap, even though you're consuming super clean diet. Like, if you guys ever been in a situation, your neighbor's eating ho-hos and can still run a 7-minute mile after work, and you're like, what the heck, I'm doing everything right, yet he's doing all this, and yet his energy is through the roof. It's because he has different genetic dispositions than you. That's why you can have someone that is doing everything right and someone doing everything wrong, and yet they live to 96 and the other person passes away. It's because different genetic dispositions. Your neighbor may be able to methylate even though their folic acid's low. So let's say your ancestors ate a very balanced folate-rich diet, high in plants, high in vegetables. It's unlikely that you'll carry the mutation to make energy. A lot of genetic clinical work comes out of autism research. An example would be Amy Yasko. She's putting out a lot of cool research right now. If you have the MTHR mutation, you may need to prioritize eating meats. That's an important one. There's also genes that code for the ability to produce choline. This is big for breastfeeding mothers. If a breastfeeding mother has the genetic polymorphism that doesn't allow her to incorporate the choline into her breast milk, then the baby's going to be severely malnourished with that. So these mothers that are saying, I tried breastfeeding, but my baby, they didn't thrive, a lot of them have this genetic disposition. And this is something that I've found. I mean, we've had plenty of women come through who had difficulty with breastfeeding. And this is one of the things that we look for, is the choline. Another one is salivary amylase. And I'm going through these, but these are some of the most important genes for aging and stopping premature aging. Because what this does is this allows you to know specifically what your genetic disposition is. So you can say, okay, I need to back off of the carbs. I need to maybe increase the carbs. Like some people, carbs are the devil right now, but they could be actually very beneficial to you because you have a genetic disposition to them. Salivary amylase is used to break down carbs even as early as when it touches your tongue. So think Ethiopian marathon runner who can eat bananas and white rice. They have a lower insulin ogenic response, so they can digest those carbs more easily. And a lot of other people have this gene that's responsible for producing a lot of salivary amylase as well. I'm gonna kind of skip through a little bit here, but I'm gonna go to this lactase persistence gene. Maybe you have or have not heard of it, but when someone has stopped breastfeeding, their ability to digest lactose diminishes very quickly. And then some people's ability to digest lactose goes on for quite a long time into adulthood. This process is based on the lactose persistence gene. If you're a Northern European, like Scandinavian or British or France or Germany, where your ancestors were from there, you're probably lactose tolerant. There are a lot of people where the lactase gene does not exist. Example, Eastern Asian or Native American. Almost none of them have the lactase persistence gene. So how do you wrap all this around your head? You walk into your friendly neighborhood bookstore, you see that diet book on the shelf. Just know that diet that worked for the author, like the Jewish, Scandinavian, Western Asian author, they've got the lactose persistence gene and no sign of the MTFR mutation, and maybe you don't have the salivary amylase gene. That specific diet that melted the fat off and gave them loads of energy may not work for you. And that's why you can have endless amount of diet books, yet you're not necessarily going, it may not be the best diet for you. So that's significant right there. So the old model says you're destined for disease. That's absolutely false. Your epigenetics determines how quickly you are going to be aging. It determines how the mitochondria is going to be fighting for you, that engine inside your cell, how it's actually going to be reacting. So everyone takes a road. Everyone takes the road to health, wellness, age prevention, all the amazing things that come out of thriving in your best years yet. And then there's also another road, and that's the road of, sickness, disease, and not only that, but not knowing how your body responds, not knowing how your body reacts. And I can tell you that I can't say enough about genetic testing. I can't say enough about what it looks like to actually look at what your body is made up of. If you had a car, you would look at the engine. Well, your body is made up of genes. They're that powerful. And so when you think about how your body reacts, and you think about how to know what's happening with your body, there's one way to do it, and that's learning more about who you are, learning more about how you can prevent things from coming down the road. And this is really unique. I've never done this before, but Karen and I were talking, and actually Karen was like, there are many people that would just love to talk with you and have a discussion with you, and they don't get the chance to because you're not available, you're on appointments or whatever it is. And so I want to make myself available, to you. And the reason that I do is because I never want to be too busy to stop and talk and have a discussion. You sit down and you sit with friends, or you sit with a coworker, and you talk through life, talk through things. And that's exactly what I want to do with you. And it's not going to be $4.97 or $3.97 or $1.97 or not even $97. It is going to be on me. It is going to be on me. And so obviously I can't take out a ton of time because we do have a waiting list of people. So I'm going to literally dedicate 20 minutes to discussing anything you want to discuss about your health and where you want to go with your health. And the point of the conversation is to see if you and I would work well together. There are people that I don't work well with. There's a criteria that I go by, and that's perfectly okay. That's the thing, is I love you, I care about you, I want the world for you. I want you to get with that practitioner that works for you. But I would love to talk with you more about how we can address your goals, your ambitions, and most importantly, your health, and where you see yourself going. Do you have a vision for your health? Do you have a 10, 20, 30, 50-year vision for your health, however long. And what is it? And are you thinking about it? Are you writing down a war plan of how to get there? So I would love to have a discussion with you. I'd love to talk with you. There's going to be a link in the chat bar, and you can go to it, click on it, and like I said, the appointment is on me, and it's a privilege, it's an honor to be able to connect with you. If you have any questions, you can also let Karen know. I am going to right now take your questions. If you have any question for me, I will take that question. If I don't know it, I will let you know that I don't know it. If I do know it, I will also let you know that. So you can chat it up in the chat box. You can ask something. I will try my best to answer it. Why are we doing this? Because for me, I was in need at one point in time, and a hand pulled me up and cared for me and said, you are valuable beyond measure. And guess what? You are valuable beyond measure. So thanks, guys. Make sure, throughout your week that you are looking for opportunities to help someone in need. And it is so important that we are constantly encouraging those around us. You know what I do in the grocery store? And actually, this is a challenge for me, a challenge for everybody. In the grocery store, anywhere I go, I always try to say, I need to comment, or I need to give someone a compliment. Hey man, that's an awesome shirt. I love that shirt. Hey, I just want to let you know that your hair looks great today. Whatever it is, just look for things in people. And you know what? That changes someone's physiology and neurology. Someone could be having a really crappy day, and all of a sudden that comment comes out of left field, and they're having the best day in the world. And all it takes is a minute. All it takes is maybe 10 seconds of your time to do that. So take time to compliment somebody in the need. And guess what? You might be pulling out of a situation that you never knew they were experiencing, or they may be put on a smile, but in fact there's turmoil inside. And just that compliment alone is going to skyrocket them to living their best life, or at least their best day. So it's awesome, guys. Thanks so much for listening and being on. Once again, we're going to take questions in the comment section. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see what you guys are asking. So we can start with that. I'm gonna turn off my camera here. So if you're having any issues at all with commenting, let Karen know. Once again, would love to see all your questions. If you have any, I'm just gonna hang out here. So we'll just hang out, and you let us know what you have a question about. And it could be anything you want to ask at all. I wish I had music to play right now for you, but I don't. Or you can click the offers tab as well, like Karen has said. Brent asks, what is the number one deficiency you see across your client base, and what recommendations do you make to prevent these deficiencies? Great question, Brent. What is the number one deficiency you see across your client base? So I would say definitely micronutrient deficiencies. And micronutrient deficiencies are vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. They come in all forms. You can look at folic acid. You can look at all different types of metals. You can look at copper. You can look at amino acid panels, all those things. And I would say, you said what recommendations do you make to prevent these deficiencies? That is a little bit harder of a question. And the reason I say that is because I love whole food lifestyle programs. And that's what I operate in. And I would much rather have someone on whole foods than supplements. My goal is to never have someone on supplements for the rest of their lives. But I will say that there are toxicity issues and detoxification pathway issues, like for instance, from your thyroid to your kidney, from your kidney to your adrenals, that can essentially block nutrients from being assimilated in your gut properly or being distributed throughout your body properly. So if someone has a micronutrient deficiency, if it's severe enough, you do have to supplement initially. And then you also have to address the detoxification pathways, because if you don't, what happens is that person isn't going to be assimilating the nutrients in their food properly. So they're going to be on an amazing whole food diet, but they're still having these micronutrient deficiencies because their gut isn't processing them properly. I hope that makes sense. That's kind of a really deep question, but I kind of answered on the surface there. Doug, thank you for all the questions. Are you suggesting that I could get genetically tested and you would customize whatever diet or vitamin program I might better seek? Absolutely. So that is for sure. From genetic testing, we can see weight loss resistance. We can see how sensitive you are to carbs. We can see, how sensitive you'll be to even raw foods. Different types of fibers, things like that. Absolutely. And the thing is that, there's a lot of genetic testing out there that offer a panel of explanation. Like, we'll tell you what your genes mean. The only issue with that I have is you'll have things like, individuals with an APOE4 who have an increased risk of sensitivity to high cholesterol. Plus it puts them in a high disposition to Alzheimer's. The APOE4 is the SNP, so of a gene, which stands for singular nucleotide polymorphism. The problem is that you could address the gene the wrong way. And then, for instance, like someone with vitamin D deficient gene, they're going to be taking tons of vitamin D, but that may not necessarily be what they need. That's what the gene is predisposed to that, but there's actually other factors that come into that. I did not mention the cost of the genetic testing that you're asking about. So the genetic testing, normally the MSRP on genetic testing is $3,000. What we do is we have you do the genetic test, and then I go through that genetic test with you. So I explain all your SNPs, and I explain exactly what you need to do to address every single one of them. We develop a program for you. And the cost of that is $1,297 for that genetic test. Barbara asked, I heard to heal a leaky gut, you need to eat steamed veggies, not raw. Is that true? Because I'm eating salads and doing green smoothies for breakfast. That is not necessarily true, Barbara. Cooking vegetables is powerful because it breaks them down, which makes it easier for your gut to assimilate them. So in that way, I would say yes, that's a great point. But I've also healed the gut without someone altering their raw diet at all. So it is possible not to eat raw vegetables. The only issue with that, because leaky gut is micro lesions in the gut, that's allowing food particles to get out into the lesions in the gut. So now your body, it's an autoimmune essentially. It's not essentially an autoimmune disease, but it's your body's fighting itself. So you can heal those micro lesions without necessarily cooking all the food that you're eating. And there's certain ways that you do that, but that's kind of the short of that question. I hope I answered that to your liking. Carol, I fully agree with all you're saying about disease and the impact of epigenetics. I have not taken a pharmaceutical product for over 35 years. Carol, amazing. I'm 64 now, can still do a 4-minute plank, and am on no medication. I think those two things are connected. That's all I got to say about that. Guys, it's so important, Carol, that's amazing. Congratulations. But it is so true that, that is something when you're proactive and you are, pushing the envelope and allowing yourself to step outside that model and say, hey, my body is a healing, wonderfully functioning mechanism that can absolutely accomplish health, healing, and thriving within itself if I just give it the right things. Carol, you're affecting your epigenetics. Bam, right there. You've been taking a pharmaceutical product for over 35 years, 64 years old, 4-minute plank, man, you're whipping my butt. I'm convicted. So great questions, guys, by the way. If you want to know more about the genetic testing, we can definitely have a talk about it and figure out what's right for you. If anybody has any more questions at all, I would be happy to answer them. Karen put the link inside the chat room. So if you want to chat more about your health, I would love to do that. It's my pleasure. Once again, it's on me. There's no strings attached, guys. I promise. I'm just wanting you to be well, wanting to thrive in your best years yet. And I love sharing knowledge with people. I love seeing people thrive. So have a wonderful, wonderful night. I don't see any more questions in the chat bar. So I'm guessing that is all the questions. It's 9:55. So thank you so much for hanging out on the line with us and spending time with us tonight, guys. Been wonderful. Always love spending time with you. Have an amazing night. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. We are going to be having more webinars, continuing on to some amazing topics. This is just the start. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to be delving into some amazing topics. Look out for our emails as always. Thank you so much for the amazing numbers that got on and signed up for the webinar. We are honored and privileged to have you. Love each and every one of you. Have an amazing night. Brent, I just caught that at the very end. Scheduled an appointment. Awesome. Thank you, my man. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for taking the time to let people know about the need to change the paradigm of health. Absolutely, Carol. Thank you so much. You guys have a good night.